April 20th is an example of the way in my head that brains can make connections and that they aren't always real. Brains really, really, really like to make connections and assumptions, right? About like the direction of causality of things. April 20th of 1999 was the Columbine shooting. And I was a 7th grader, homeschooled kid at the time, but that fall I started as an 8th grader at a big high school. They handled the Columbine shooting and the aftermath of that strange at my high school. I suspect they handled it strange at other people's high schools because administrators also didn't know what to do, right? And they started doing a thing at least 1 year that I was there, I remember for certain, but I think they did it multiple years, of having a big assembly on April 20th, right? Which seemed really strange to me as a child who was like relatively self-aware and pretty anxious, that we would, on the anniversary of that thing, bring everybody together in a holding pen, which was the auditorium. April 20th is also Hitler's birthday. My little brain, and rumors at the time, I think, were that that had been the reason that the shooting had happened on April 20th, right? That April 20th had been their motivation, and that they were racially motivated or ethnically motivated or something, and that had explained it, which isn't true, right? They actually planned on doing it the 19th. There's no evidence in any of those guys' stuff that like this was the defining piece. It probably they had no idea. But that helped it make sense. I remember in my like 8th grade brain being like, well, it was Hitler's birthday, and these guys must have been like atrocious humans that like wanted to, not understanding that like there are other systems at play. But it just happened that it was Hitler's birthday, and my brain thought atrocity must be linked, right? And Google didn't exist. There weren't ways to like look these things up, and we were going off of rumors. We spent years thinking that Marilyn Manson might have had a rib removed, right? Like these things were not researchable with the same ease at the time. So that's my April 20th don't connect things moment. Also, what would have been, I'm pretty sure, the summer of 7th grade, after 7th grade. So that summer before that is the time that I kicked a girl out of my literal and metaphorical clubhouse because she was a Holocaust denier. And I wish I had handled that moment differently in retrospect because she was a child, right? I didn't know that we were both children. I didn't know that 13-year-old us were children, and that's, that we all needed our learning moments. But I was homeschooled, and she was homeschooled, and we hung out together, and we'd been hanging out together like 6 years, right? We had sleepovers together, played in creeks together, hung out together in these big groups, done tours together. And I said something about the Holocaust because I had already started reading like these journals and information and I had some context for this thing. And she was like, oh, that didn't happen. That's not real. And I was like, oh, that's not going to work. That's not, whoa, that just didn't happen? And she's like, yeah. And in retrospect, she's severely isolated, raised by an absolutely insane human being in the middle of rural Missouri. And he was homeschooling her because he believed some absolutely whack things. And in 1999, it came to a head where she said, oh yeah, no, I've been taught that all of that was fake. And I said, ooh, no, that doesn't work for me. And I wish that I could go back in time with as much patience as I have now and say, here's the evidence, here's the pieces, right? But, it turns out that the narrative that the Holocaust didn't happen is actually more rampant now than it was in 1999. We have fewer of the vets that survived the thing around to set people straight. And here it is, and it's Hitler's birthday. And Easter. And 420.